podcast, and it's an honor and a privilege to be having a conversation with the wonderful Donald Hayden. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, how you doing today? Thank you for allowing me on the best podcast in the world. Just
I,
tapping in. Just tapping in.
thank you, thank you, thank you. So here at the podcast, we don't have interviews, we have conversation, right? So if we go off topic, let it flow. All
Gotcha.
right. You know, if your kids are knocking at the door, hey, have at it. Take your time. This is what we do here.
Okay.
So everybody, come on in. We're going to have a discussion. Mr. Donald has a very interesting story. One that when I saw his post and I saw the messages, I'm like, how is this man even surviving? But we're going to tap into the strength and the courage that this gentleman has today. So, Mr. Donald, first tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois. 44 years old, married, one child. I'm a veteran, disabled veteran, due to traumatic brain injury and PTSD. Was PTSI? They call it something different now. It changes all so often. Which being a native in Chicago, everything started with me. I'm dyslexic, and I had my challenges there as well as in the military. The moment I found out that I had a problem with reading, I was about, I'm gonna say maybe 8 or 9. Teacher had the bright idea to stick me in front of the classroom. Well, first off, let me start here. They stuck me in a high level grade, like the highest level, thinking that what was going on with the other kids was going to help me catch up by osmosis for some reason. So teacher put us all in front of, put like 5 or 6 of us in front of a classroom when we were speaking. They was reading out of a book. And I'm looking around like, I didn't actually know kids can read that well at that age. So one kid read, I looked over, I was like, wow. I said, I know she's not expecting me to sit here and read what's going on. So every kid did the same thing until it got to me. She said, Donald, could you read from this passage where they left off at this paragraph? I was dumbfounded. I was standing there like barbecue, but I because words to me at times they seem backwards. Sometimes I'll see and see the, but at that age, only words I knew was a and I. But that was a challenge for me up until I'm gonna say like 20. I'm gonna say around 20, and a lot of me not being able to know how to read like other kids, I acted out. I did. I could be completely honest. I acted out in a huge way, which caused me to get in a lot of trouble and surround myself around people that was not inducive to my life. So I was kicked out of high school at 14, 15. So, and it wasn't anything due to my fault. It was just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So if anybody's listening, and if you have somebody that's in your life, and so don't sit back and act like you don't have people in your life that that you need to get rid of. You want to go places, you want to do things, but everybody's always knocking you for who you are and what you do. Hey, this, and like a lot of times, even yourself. And then, I call these people dirty words because they're not bringing anything to your life. I say, get rid of those dirty words. That's what I say. But, I've never walked across a graduation stage as far as high school. Never been to prom. So, and my life really started when I was 15. I had to grow up quick. And it was like one incident caused so many more incidents, like me being kicked out of school. And, I had a man, it was just me and my father at the time, because my father was a single parent. He raised me, and God bless, and I thank God for him. he fought with me. When I got kicked out of high school, I seen a tear in that. That's the strongest man that's like my Superman, like the strongest man I've ever known. He had a tear come out of his eye, like, man, what we gonna do? He can't do this because he knew my challenges, and he can't like really comprehend things that's going on as far as education. So what he told me was, I don't know what we're gonna do, but as long as I see you trying, we gonna make it. So and that stuck in my head from the time I was 15, because from that time I started getting rid of a lot of people. But I didn't. So I thought I did. I went back around certain people, which I thought they was cool, but they weren't, which caused me to get arrested one time. And I was like, and it was for somebody else's stuff. This also happened to walk in the alleyway when people was getting searched. Police officer seeing some drugs on the ground and say, hey, you just walked past there. And the person that it belonged to, he just put his head down. And from that day on, and I think I was 16 at the time. 15 got kicked out of high school. 16, I'm trying to repair things. I stopped. I was smoking weed. I stopped smoking weed, and that happens. So that was another blow to my father. I was like, man, I got to discipline this man. And I tried to let it go under the radar, but I couldn't because I needed somebody to bail me out of prison, out of jail. I was on hold for like probably 12 or 15 hours. And the guy comes to the cage. He was like, hey, if nobody comes to pick you up, we're going to have to send you down to county because the county, I don't know what it is. If you like that young and nobody's really come at that time, come to claim you, they're going to put you in with the big guys. I was like, oh, no, we're not about to do that. So I called my father. He posted bail. He got me out. Then I had my court date. Then I just went into hiding from everybody, everyone. So, I went into Job Corps. I was about 17, 18. I went into Job Corps. I did that for 2 years. I met a recruiter, and the Army, the military was, I'm just walking it into the career path that I had. Military was something that I always wanted to do because, I watched G.I. Joe growing up, going this after battle. They always had their little sayings, and I always like, man, I would like to, but I never thought I was qualified to do these things. Recruiters say, hey, man, you want to join the military? I said, I can do that. I'm like, me as a black guy, because how, like in certain cultures, they speak against that. So when they speak against it, in my head, it's like, you're not qualified to do that. Because the negative thing about growing up in certain places, if everybody has a particular type of mindset, 9 times out of 10, you're going to think the same way. I can't be these things. So a lot of these things kind of stuck with me up until a certain point. So I met the recruiter. Let me tell you, I'm going to say for 7 years, 2 recruiters stuck with me up until, and I really didn't believe it myself. For 7 years, that's how long it took me to pass the ASVAB test because I couldn't read like everybody else. And in my head, it's like one person knew about it, and he said, "Hey man, you ain't got it in this long, so why you keep fighting?" Even my father say, "Man, maybe you need to try something else." Especially after coming out of Job Corps. But my father will always, even though he said that, he will always follow it up with, even though I'm sitting here saying this to you, I cannot sit here and tell you what you're not capable of. But if you believe it in your heart, within yourself, that this is something you want to do, keep fighting until you don't have the qualifications that you can't do it. You have the age and you have the health. Keep fighting. But my opinion is nothing over your life. But eventually, son, you have to kind of continue to fight because I'm not going to be alive forever. The hardest conversation you can ever have with a person that's taking care of you, especially in your 20s. Especially. I've always had odd jobs. You know, I was always fighting to become. It seems like in my life, every point in my life was some type of obstacle, some destination, because everybody has that conversation of journey and destination and kind of fight with it. And I came to the conclusion, like, yeah, it is a journey, and you're gonna stop at certain points in your life. So it's both. It's both. Some people they slide through on this, come to a point to where it's just easy, and they might hit certain moments in their life where they have problems, but some people is always the roller coaster, up, down, up, down, up, down. So I joined the military at 25. First off, I didn't know what. I was excited, but at the same time, I didn't know what was going on. It was like a straight culture shock. I get on the plane, I get off the plane. First off, I'm gonna say my father dropped me off at the bus station. It was like something out of Man of Honor. It's was the Cuba Gooding Jr. movie when he was in the Navy. He said, "Hey, son, don't come back here." He was like, "Don't come back." I didn't come back. I didn't move out of Chicago. He said, "Hey, you fought hard for this," and he said, "You coming back here might put you back." So he's like, "Don't come back here." I said, "I'm proud." He walked off crying. I was like, "Pop." So got on the plane. From the bus, they took us to the plane station. Plane, and once we get on the bus, it's dark. It's pitch black outside. I've never seen it that dark in an area in my life. I say, "Is this like?" There's no lights. You guys are stopping out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like, "Oh my!" Then I got a little scared. So they pulled up until the place is like, "Oh man, this is really happening." I get my hair cut. He asked me how I want my hair cut because I had the waves in, you know. Hey, I say, "Hey, you can just take a little off the side." Because he asked like he's being, I didn't know he was being sarcastic. He was like, "All right, I got you." So he took everything off. I was like, "Oh man." I seen him doing to everybody. Everybody had the same cut. Everybody dressed right dressed. Everybody was dressed the same, looked the same outside of the skin color. That's the only thing that separated us. So when I get to basic, I'm still not believing this is going on because I fought so long just for this moment, just to have this moment. So, you know, I had everybody complaining around me. I'm 25 and they got these 18-year-old kids around me talking about the food's nasty. I say, "Hey, man, we eating 3 times a day." What y'all tripping on, man? We eating. Like, you see those beds over those? I was sleeping on the floor before I came here. Because at a certain point, my father moved in my nephew and started taking care of my nephew. I didn't want to be in the room with my nephew. So I said, "Papa, I sleep on the floor in the front." So that's cool with me. You know, after I came back from Job Corps when he came, because I came back at from 18 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "No, he needs his space. I need mine." Like when y'all leave the living room, you know, because when I was at work, I come home and I just crashed out on the floor. And that went on for like 5 years until I joined the military. So when I got a bed, I'm like, "Man, look, this is gold." And I had 3 meals a day. Because, you know, the only time you get 3, like I did personally, is when I was in school. 3 meals a day, man, please. Okay. You get cereal in the morning, but pancakes, you get eggs, and then you go to lunch and get a full meal. Then you go to dinner and get a full. I was eating good. So, man, I don't know what y'all complaining about. This is happening to me. Mm-hmm. So, like, and I didn't really understand the different demographics on which people grew up then, because once again, I thought everybody pretty much lived the same, which was not true.
Right.
So I learned a lot right there. I was like, "Nah, you know what? They didn't grow up like me. So this is different for them. This is like a little too different for them. They're not used to the structure that's being ordered out to them." Yeah, of course they want to break down and want to go home because they're used to being cuddled in a certain type of way. I'm not sitting back saying anything bad about anybody like that, but there's people that's different. grew up different in a different environment, have not been through what you've been through. So can you judge them for how they think and how they move? No, you really can't. Only thing you can do is try to get a perspective, and try to navigate things in a conversation. You got to know how to talk to certain people in certain demographics, because it's not just one area of you because you think a certain type of way. It's not just that area of life. You can't just see things in one. It's like having a spouse, which is one of the hardest things that to do, is being married to somebody that grew up different than you, and you expect them to be on board with everything that you do and say. It's hard. They grew up different from you and who you are. You just gotta get an understanding of where they come from and wear their shoes, and try to get them to see your views. Not understand it, not fully understanding it, but like, you know what? Agree to disagree.
Right.
And walk away. Peaceful.
Right. We don't get into that one, but
Notice I said peaceful, because
mm-hmm.
you got to grow into that peaceful part, because it's a lot of angry moments in that. But, you know, once I come out of basic, I get to AIT. You know, I went into the military to be a cook. I didn't want to do that. I didn't. But this was my way into the military. First off, when I passed the ASVAB test at the military entry place, and he told me I passed, he said, "We can have you out of here in a week." I say, "Let's go." Hey, you ain't got it. I say, "Let's go." Let me start packing my bag. My dad didn't believe it. But when I was at AIT, I was a cook. Once I got done with AIT, I went to my first duty station, which was Fort Hood, Texas. I'm still in like Killeen, in the area of the base right now. So as soon as I get to brigade, which is like the processing unit, to send me out to my company, I seen the first sergeant. First sergeant, he seen me, which was like the commander and manager of that company. So he say, "Hey," he looked at me, he looked at my size. He was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna be cooking." And I was like, I didn't care. I was probably in the defect every bit of 3 or 4 months. He put me on the line unit with the infantry guys, so it was a lot of training there, a whole lot of training in the field. So I got in the military in 2005. Late 2005, we found out that we was going to deploy. So we were doing more training. These guys do a lot of training on top of training on top of training. And I was gone a lot. Once we found out we was deployed, I really it didn't process like I think it should have. Maybe it's because of the area which I came from, which is Chicago. I grew up in Inglewood, in Chicago. One of the most dangerous areas in Chicago is Inglewood. So it didn't really process to me. Yeah, I've been shot at before in Chicago, but I did encounter something that was way above the norm of being vigilant and looking out after myself, as far as looking behind my back, because that comes from Chicago as well. So we went on a 14, 15, this is my first deployment, 14, 15-month deployment, 2006 to 2008, to mid-2008. So I'm going to say the first month there, I'm going to say the first couple of weeks, we weren't doing anything. We was doing some like left seat, right seat. They were showing us how things go, what routes to take and what to do and what not to do. The minute we get on our own, and I was a part of a QRF unit, which was quick reaction force, which is some individuals that had to respond to certain things within a certain time frame. It's like kind of like a little bit like SWAT. So we were that for EOD, which is explosive ordnance disorder. So they go out and dispose the bombs, and we kind of had to protect them. Anytime somebody seen a bomb on the side of the road, they get the call, we get the call, and we had to roll out quick. Anytime we went out with them, it was a guarantee we were going to get blown up that day. And like to this day, I can remember it. Like the first time we were hit within that month, everything seemed like a long time, but it went in seconds for my memory. I started seeing things from when I was like 2, 3, and it was going slow but fast. And I'm just sitting there like, what's going on? And I'm looking around. Everything was in my memory was going slow. I was remembering a lot of when they say your life flashes before your eyes.
Right.
It actually it did to me. I don't know who believes it, but I couldn't believe the things I was remembering that I really didn't remember before. Like being in Chuck E. Cheese for the first time as a kid, because I have a twin, going out, playing out, riding a bike as a child. I was remembering those things. That boom, it shook me. My head was kind of right. I was dazed a little bit. I didn't really realize the side effects. My ear buzzes a lot. That's a constant. It's like it doesn't go away. I'm kind of somewhat used to it unless it's very, very quiet. And I notice it. But after that, I was hit about probably several more times. So it became the norm. So when things like that, events like that become the norm, seeing and being a part of stuff like that, it becomes the norm. You become a little bit desensitized to some things that go on around you in civilian life. It becomes a whole lot different. How people see things as far as being dramatic or like overbearing, you just look at it as, okay. My grandma died after my first deployment. Was it my grandmother? Because it was either my grandmother or grandfather, because both of them died after my deployments, or both of my deployments. As soon as I got back, it was my grandmother. And my second deployment, as soon as I got back, it was my grandfather. So as soon as I get back, it was like, hey, Red Cross contacted the unit and told me that my grandma had passed away. I didn't process it. I just looked at it as, okay, So it was, and I started realizing a certain part of me has left because when we were deployed, it was so many people dying every day. So, and people, I'm explaining that because people look at veterans as if it's not the fact that they don't care. It's just that if they've been deployed during high combat times, it's just they're just been around it for so long. It just becomes the part of the norm for them. It doesn't mean that they don't care. Somebody that sees death a lot, it's just part of their normal. And that's a part of me that I've been trying my best to kind of get back. Because, when people call me and say, hey, such and such just died, I was like, man, I want to sit back and have some feelings toward this. But I just say, man, my condolences, and I sympathize. But do I really? Like, nobody should lose a life. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm just trying to get people to understand the dynamics of an individual that sees death on a constant. Like if I sit here and tell you one of the missions we are on with EOD to explode a bomb was strapped to an individual that was already dead, and they had to, I don't know if I can say it on your platform, dispose of the bomb with the bomb being on that person's body. And the sights being seen after that, this is the things that you come across when you deal with certain veterans. These are the things that they see. So I'm just trying to let people into the mess. Not that they're dangerous people. They're not.
Right.
If you have a veteran that's explosive with their behavior, they had a little bit of aggression with them before they came into the military, and PTSD just kicked it up another notch.
Okay. So repeat that part again.
So, okay, if you have a veteran that you see as aggressive and he explodes all the time and his anger is just so all out of place when you say things to him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not just veterans. This can be a person that could just actually go through a civilian trauma like rape, being jumped on by multiple people, being shot. The traumatic event just puts more strain and stress on what that is as far as that anger, and makes them outburst more. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but it intensifies that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
10 times more. If you're vigilant before that happens, please believe me, it becomes to a point to where you're OCD with it. You're always checking, looking behind your back, remembering these events. Let me tell you, it's natural. Reminding yourself of these events is natural. It is. Because believe it or not, you can have a traumatic reaction towards something that you didn't think you would have, like a rattlesnake. You're automatically going to jump and be afraid of it. So it's kind of natural to be afraid of things that cause you harm. It's just these things that we come across has been things that happened to the average individual in any given day. So when these individuals are passing off, like this is every day. We won't black out every day. We couldn't call home, couldn't talk to nobody. And mind you, like the whole 15 months while I was deployed, I felt alone anyway. Even though I had a fiance at the time, and I had my family back home. I probably only got one letter from the people, and I didn't fault them for that. Nobody came to my graduation because why they didn't come? I didn't tell them that I was graduating. To be perfectly honest with you, I told nobody I was joining the military. The only person that knew was my father, because he kept asking me, "Hey, you gonna tell your mother?" I was like, "Nah, Bob. This is something that just needs to be done without nobody knowing," because I didn't want people coming to me, talking to me, trying to convince me not to do what was best for me in my life. I didn't need that at all. Like I knew that was going to come to, hey, you about to go do what? Maybe my father was like, hey, man, it's wartime. As soon as he found out I was leaving, hey, it's wartime. You don't have to leave. And I was like, Pop, yes, I do. I understand. A Vietnam vet himself. See, I understand. I understand. And he was like, you my hero. I was like, no, Pop, you my hero. Well, let me go back. I'm gonna explain the Superman to me. He's actually a real person. I was about 8 or 9. We was getting off the bus about 1 or 2 in the morning, coming from his job. Because sometimes he was the boss. He was a chief engineer at his place. He could take me back and forth to work with. Because I grew up in a house with 8 women. 9 include my mother. I was the only boy. I'm the baby boy. So, I was getting bopped upside the head around there. But anyway, we was getting off the bus, and it was a crowd of fellas running towards us from the opposite direction. He immediately threw me behind him, and somebody started shooting. Bullets was passing by. No bullet hit him, and I was behind. I was like, whoa. This is my dad. I was like, man, from there, I was like, yeah, that's my Superman. That's my Superman. But yeah, let me jump back to where I was with the people dying. So my my first deployment, I felt alone. I did. Even though I had my fiance there, we were up, down, up, down, up, down. Things started to change. My personality started to change. So did hers, because she was also on the military, but she was in a totally different place than I was. But I used to visit her like probably once a week. And then we get back to the States. Things really started to get bad. I was okay for a minute until she said that she didn't want to be with me no more. Right there, I was like, man, are you serious? Are you for real? I didn't believe that was happening after everything that happened. So I processed a little bit of suicidal ideations. And even I'm transparent, attempting it myself. I I put a gun in my mouth, pulled the trigger. It didn't go off. It didn't go off. I cried. I gave the weapon that I had to one of my leaders, and I just left it at that. And right there made me close off a lot more things than what I actually was supposed to. So I started burying stuff. So I come to meet her probably 6 or 7 months later. She gets to the unit. She was deployed with me on my second deployment. You know, things were fine, but I was a little different with her. I was a little bit closed off, and she used to say that. Say, "Hey, am I paying for the things that your ex fiance did?" I say, "No, I haven't. No, but things were a little bit different in that aspect." And what happened? I was people interrupted, just like you said. Kind of throw me off track. But yeah, I was a little bit different. But after that second deployment, I decided to get out because I was having some problems with my leadership, and they wasn't really having my back on some things. I could have actually got somebody in trouble, but I sat back and thought to myself, you know what? Maybe this is like a sign. Maybe I should just go ahead, take this GI Bill, go back to school. So let me tell you, I got my associate's degree before I got my GED. That's that I did that in 2 years. I started it from scratch. And after that, I received my bachelor's degree. Proudest moment in my life outside of having a kid and being married. Like one of the best moments. I walked across the stage, and I was like a kid in the candy store. Ladies say, "Hey, don't stop and take pictures of yourself. Just keep moving because we have a program to keep in time to keep." You think I didn't stop? Huh. I had the biggest Kool-Aid smile on my face. Like you couldn't tell me not to stop. I say, this is my moment. I'm gonna take my moment. I'm gonna take my time. So yeah, I stood up there with pride, with a big smile on my face, took those pictures, and I took my time walking off that stage because I never, at 34, I've never experienced walking across the stage with a diploma. So I received two associates and a bachelor's degree, which I'm currently thinking of going back to school for my master's, just for what I didn't have, and just to show people that I'm not a racist individual by far, but I'm sitting back and I'm telling you, as a black man, you can go far and beyond what they. I'm not saying race. I'm saying people in general, your environment as well. What they deem you can be. I don't care how smart you are. You really don't need brains to graduate from college. You just need the will.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got the will and some type of strength to do that within yourself, man, let me tell you, Let me think, you can fight for whatever you want to fight for. I say 7 years. I mean 7 years it took me to do that to get into the military. And I think that dog followed me. Like, hey, what is failure? I'm dealing with stuff right now. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but I do talk to God and say, why? Why do I have to continue to fight? Yeah, I know it's kind of Sean the Palm. You know, when Job asked the question why, and the three wise men came up and said, you know, you shouldn't question. But at the end of the day, he wasn't turning away from God. He was just trying to figure out why. He didn't turn away from God. I still praise God through everything that happened. Everything. To this day, if I can't pay the bill, praise God. I praise my. I don't, you know, I don't want to offend nobody. But at the end of the day, I believe in God. I do. And you know, I get out of the military. So she's pregnant in 2014. I graduated in 2014. I had a moment to slow down. I couldn't process things as soon as I got out of the military, because when I got out of the military, when I got out of the military in 2010 of July, 2 days later, I actually started school with a full load, 6 or 7 classes a semester. So I didn't slow down at all. So they was paying me. I'm good. They paying me to go to school. I'm getting unemployment. That's running. This is my job right now. I gotta get these papers in. Did I know what I was doing? Nope. But I knew what I was doing when they sit back and they talk and I listen. So I had to use some of the things that I had in the street to be like, so if I show up to school every day and I don't know how to do this, I get a credit here. If I'm coming to my teacher and talking to my teacher about something, we can work something out, Mr. Hayden. Use all that to your advantage. Just don't sit back and say what you can't do. Talk to these people. There's people out there that can help you. I'm gonna say my last year of my bachelor's, I was on academic probation. You say 1.2, who's a doctor? Not me. Hey, that's real. I'm not a doctor. Hey man, but I walked across that stage with my bachelor's degree. Hey man, look. I wasn't the smartest person in the room, but I was the smartest person in the room. People were dropping like flies around me. People I started school with, it was just too hard for them. And you know, I try to convince them and tell them, like, hey man, it's light at the end of the tunnel. Trust me. But once again, I had to tell myself the environment in which they grew up in did not tell them, and there are failing moments in your life. And once you face these dark moments, it does nothing but put strength in you. It's going to hurt for a moment and a time. Trust me. Let it hurt. Let it dig deep. But don't let it take the character of which you are. That joy, that smile, that laugh. Don't let it take it out of you. And man, I said it before about the people you hang around. If those are individuals in which wants the sad story and tell you that it's okay for you to sit back in your funk, in that dirty, nasty funk, they wrong. I'm going to give you about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you what next. We ain't going to sit there forever. I'm going to say, what next? What's the next plan? You going to give up? Yeah, I think I'm going to stop. Not around me. I mean, I understand if you ain't got nothing else for it, let's just leave it be and let's just attack something else. I don't care what it is, relationships, jobs, it doesn't matter. School, I don't care what. Okay, what we gonna do after that? You don't want to do that no more. So what? We got to put our focus somewhere else now. What next? We can't dwell on that forever. So when I was in school, I got out 2014. In May. He was born in July. From the time of May and July, I processed everything that happened in Iraq. That slowdown is something that that hurt me so much, so much. I had suicidal thoughts, thinking about running my car into a wall. I was in and out of therapy probably twice a week, sometimes three. I never wanted to sit back and because the VA does have programs which you can sit back and spend 60 or 90 days in therapy. But to me, that was almost like being in prison. I like my solitude. I don't like being around people I don't know like that. You know? I
Right.
said, no, that's gonna feel too much like jail, and it's probably gonna make me a little worse than what I am now. Yeah, so I had a lot of problems as far as feeling depressed, handling that depressed. Yeah, I've let me tell you. So therapy's there. It's there. Medication is there. I'm not gonna sit back and tell nobody to take no medication. I'm not. I don't. I don't do that. I don't. I will never ever tell anybody not to seek therapy because it helps
Hmm.
some individuals. Because you need to figure out some way to deal with the trauma that you dealt with. I'm not even talking about as a veteran, childhood trauma from your
Right.
parents.
Right.
Because parents spill over a lot of things to the kids, not even paying attention to what they're doing, because a lot of what they're doing, they got from their parents.
Hmm.
Like a lot of stuff that they say to you, because I told you so type stuff, without saying the harms behind why they told you that you couldn't do certain things. As far as them, yeah, you can't hang out with such and such. Why? Because I don't trust that individual. Because this individual lives like this. And if you get caught up in that, you have the possibility of becoming like this. Not to look down on nobody, but I'm just trying to get you to see the people that you hang. They don't explain stuff like that. Touch the stove, it's hot. Don't touch that stove. You had to figure it out like that, right? That's how you had to figure out life like, go ahead and touch it. Now my hand is hot. Hey, if that stove is well, if you explain it to, hey, the stove is hot. If you touch it, you will burn your hand. Now I've warned you. After that, you just leave it be. But we're just told, go ahead and touch it. And then we have to get the reaction of, and then you probably like sometimes a kid, like, you told me to touch the stove. You don't care. But it is true though. You don't care. Which
Right.
they do, but at the end of the day, we deal with a lot of trauma. I've just used that as an analogy. But we deal with a lot of trauma from our parents, not parents, our environment. Coming from Chicago to Texas, man. Hey, if I run over time, man, just let me know.
Oh no, you're fine. You're good.
So coming from Chicago to Texas was like a culture shock for me.
Hmm.
Coming from that environment, it's like somebody said good morning. Hey, how you doing? I looked at them like, oh, this joker some money or something? Some older cat had to explain it to me. Smiling all in my face saying good morning or whatever.
Hmm.
He looked at me and he sighed. This cat wasn't in the military. This was somebody's parent that I served with in the military. He had to explain it to me. It's like, hey, I know probably the area you grew up in didn't allow common signs of courtesy, like good morning, hey, how you doing? But this is the courtesy. This is Southern hospitality that you get here in
Hmm.
Texas. People say good morning. People smile on your face. People shake your hand. Hey, and to even top it off, men hug each other. I was like, for real?
We do. We do.
I was like, for real? I was like, okay. But I learned a lot from that moment. It was like my mind was always becoming, and it still is. I'll never be to a point to where I know everything. The minute you know everything, the minute you just being. being is just stagnant, not trying to learn, not trying to grow, not trying to go anywhere. But once again, I'm not looking down on nobody. But in the essence of becoming, it's always planting a seed in your head that even though it's dark, with the growth of that seed in the soil, there's always something that provides light, and you have to feed it. You know, what do you do when you try to grow a plant? You give it water and sunlight, the natural elements of God. It grows from the root. But let me tell you, a lot of times people will try to snatch that up out of the ground. They can't take the root up. I promise you they can't. This that you once they cut it from the stem, that PTSD, that traumatic incident you had, that bad conversation. Yeah, let me just get a little bit of sunlight and a little bit of water to feed what's going on so I can grow a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You unique. You. If they don't understand you, it's not up for you to explain. It's not. That's the only thing you can really do is at some point, if they not understanding me, it's not for me to be around them. And I deal with a lot of people that fight to get other people to accept them, and which these people are trying to change them into being someone that they're not. I say that's not your avenue. You have a lane at which you're driving. You might be able to turn your turn signals on every once in a while across lanes, but at the end of the day, you have to come to reality and sit back and say, I'm me, and continue to be you. But yeah, it was hard processing some things, and I've overcome a lot as far as my PTSD, a hell of a lot. I don't know where I left off, so that's pretty much the sum of this 47 minutes. Man,
no, you're fine. You're fine. So I want to, because I was jotting some stuff down that I can resonate with. I started this podcast. It's like when I started like promoting that I wanted guests on the podcast, and people was like resonate. I'm like, what the hell is this damn word? Like, because that was a word I never used. So when people say, "Well, I can resonate with you," what do you mean? So I literally had to look that word up because